Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date is July 3rd of 2021. It's almost 8 p.m. Um, this July 4th holiday here, usually we have tremendous amount of fireworks being shot off, which is illegal in Fort Worth and a lot of other, communities. But uh, now, well, sometime I don't know when it was, because the way I sleep, uh, I heard what sounded to me like very close, maybe even in this apartment complex, what sounded like, I don't know, 10 or 11 perhaps shots from an assault rifle. Uh, it could have been, fireworks, but if you light, if you light them together, you have them all together. Usually it's like bang, 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 bang. This was like somebody was thinking about it, pausing and whatever. But saying that, uh, this is the first 4th of July here that I can remember where there were not fireworks going off like even a week before, a lot. And of course, the closer you got to the 4th, a lot. Well, here it is, in here at midnight, it will be July 4th. And I'm surprised. Now, somebody said to me that they saw on the news that Fort Worth was putting out a lot of extra uh, police patrols in order to cut down on the number of fireworks being shot. And I told that person, I said, I don't think that's going to work at all. I was a reserve officer for over 10 years in a small town. In the beginning, all this little town had was reserve officers. And if I remember correctly, I patrolled. I never missed a night. I patrolled every Sunday. I'd come in. It would vary. I'd come in at maybe 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. It was totally up to the reserve officers how we wanted to do it. And if you had to skip a night, you could skip a night. Uh, Although there were no full-time officers in the very beginning for years. Uh, but I usually came in at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. And then I would go home, stop patrolling, depending on what was going on. And usually there was nothing going on. I'd go home at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or maybe even 4 a.m. And now I was working full time, but I was off Mondays and Tuesdays, and I had the ability to decide, you know, what days I wanted to be off. I could ask the director of security and say, "Hey, I'm going to be off." Uh, the reason I did that was staffing. Uh, I could have one person off on the weekend and the supervisors were allowed to have weekends off. But by me giving up the weekend, uh, well, I could have two of the officers off on the weekend, and people like having the weekends off. And so that's why I did it. But uh, so anyway, uh, this small town, I remember patrolling one. Maybe I patrolled them, but I think it was one. I remember it just ended up that on 4th of July, so I came in, took the patrol car out, and it was, I, I, I'm sure there were some yards where people were not shooting off fireworks. I don't remember seeing any, but I mean, it just makes sense. There's going to be somebody that's out of town, or there's going to be somebody that's, an elderly family. They go to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night or something, But I mean, the city streets were, if you could call Raymore City, filled with smoke. And and as I drove slowly through the neighborhoods, uh, they would see me coming, and then they would just, there'd be smoke coming up, or maybe some bottle rockets still coming up, and they would, look around, or maybe they might even wave to me, and I go on slowly, and I look in my rearview mirror, and I can see them out there with their kids lighting the fireworks again, Now, I could have stopped, and sure, I could have ticketed them, but I was the only officer on duty. If I'm doing that, something more serious is going on. Although I worked, I'm not sure if that's when I was working, I think it was. That's when I worked not very far away in Belton at Research Belton Hospital. I worked there altogether for 10 years, security. And one night on the 4th of July, father and mother, and now I can't remember after all this time if the kid came in by ambulance or if the father, drove the kid in, but the father had accidentally shot, I think the boy was like 7 to 9 or something like that in age. The father had accidentally shot him in an eye with a bottle rocket, and that was it. Then the kid lost his eye. His eye wasn't, wasn't there or whatever. That was it. So that's, it's, of course, when I'm 80 years old now. When I was a kid, in Kansas City, Missouri, everybody just shot rockets off like crazy, bottle rockets, powerful, fireworks. You'd be walking down the sidewalk, kids would be throwing them at you, and anyway, not sure if I'm going to play this for a little bit, and you're going to watch me, I guess, or you're going to say, what in the hell is this old man doing? Let's see.
Welcome to Caesar's 7 Lucky Years! John's Loot! What a win! Clover Isle! Evolving Dragons! Bravo!
I waste a lot of time doing this, you know that? But I don't have to think. Well, I don't think anyway, I don't know. I wish you could totally remove them. You can take them off your hard drive, but they stay here where you could see them. I wish you could totally remove them so they don't even show up. Because there's some of these that I never win. There's some that do really, you can do pretty well. It'd be like just to get the ones off. Sometimes I forget,
Launcher. Yeehaw!
This is one I don't usually do well on.
Great job!
But it's fun, some of the things, when you get the right combinations together, like 3 of the scatter or what have you, or 3 of the bonus. Or I don't think I'll be going to a real casino anymore after this virus situation. Ooh, here we go. Because I never thought of, because of this virus situation and the way people are crowded in there, and the way you sit right next to each other, and the way everybody touches the machines, because now the machines are not, not just pulling the handle or pushing the button or whatever. People put their hands on it to do various things, and it's, Of course, I've had myself, my ex-wife, we've had our 2 virus shots, and the amount of time has gone by, so. My son, well, he just got his last week. His second one last week. And my daughter and her son, who live in the apartment complex here, they just, the other day, got their second shot. So it's going to be, I don't know, 16 days or whatever it is till. This virus thing has really been, I never expected, I never expected this until it hit. And wow. Now, it really hasn't affected myself or my ex-wife very much. We both have medical some medical problems, and I very rarely get, I can't think of it, other than to a doctor's appointment. I just don't get out and go anywhere. Might as well, I might as well be in a cell, might as well be a prisoner. And I'm somebody I've never been a party goer. I don't drink. I don't go to bars. I mean, I grew up in bars. Both my parents were alcoholics, and they used to take me, with them, sometimes into the bar, and which you weren't really supposed to do, and so it depended on where the bar, and then sometimes I would just be left in the car, and, but other than that, and I'm not a drinker, like I've never been a drinker or a smoker. Let's see, what do I want to play next? This one I really don't do very well. I take it back. I've done okay on this. I turned the sound back on. I'm using Manicam, by the way, and it's I switch back and forth between Manicam and UPS. UPS? What is it? OBS? OBS Studio. And right now, Manicam is doing, 1080p at 60 frames a second. The audio's good and everything is copacetic. Okay, do I want to do 100? I'm going to do it.
Super.
Ooh. Now, I did like going to the casino when I started going to casinos in the past. And I worked, for 1 year, I worked at Lee Summit Hospital. It's, yeah, not a super small hospital, not a big hospital. And I worked nights, midnight shift. And I worked, let's see, was I working 5 nights? I think I was working 5 nights a week. So I had two, and on my nights off, just about every night, on my 2 nights off, I would go to the casino. Like the same, let's say the hours, I can't remember. Let's say the hours I worked were 10 at night until 6 in the morning or something like that. And I would go to the casino. I would be, because there wasn't anything going on, everything was closed, except the casino was open 24 hours a day. And I would go there and play every night. For that year, I kept track of how much money I won and how much I lost. And I had some fun nights where I actually, left there with like, well, $500 or $600 bills. Came home and threw them on the, tabletop or something like that. And those were fun nights. But at the end of the year, when I had everything up, of course, I was a loser. Naturally, it's set up that way. I mean, it's not crooked. It's just statistics and way things are set up. You win some, and you lose it all back, plus more. And they're not in the business of, making people rich. What do I want to, I don't want to do this again. Let's see. I'm Irish, so this ought to be, I should be a winner here. Well, I mean, my family came from County Cork in Ireland. And of course, the German family came from, the Slotmans came from Germany. No, I don't want to play this. This is a fun one, but, well, I'll go ahead and do it, but I just generally lose.
Riches of Midas. Colossal.
I worked so many jobs, midnight shifts, and hospital security. I worked hospital security for 30 years, and generally was like night shift, midnight shift, or well, evening shift too. I mean, I worked some day shift too, but it seems like on 4th of July, of course, I always worked, and a lot of the hospitals I worked at, there'd be big. I could go up on the top of the hospital parking garage and see fantastic, displays. And even the 10 years I worked at the one hospital in my hometown, small hospital, very small hospital, the town had from where I was, what was the Richard Cabarro Air Force Base, I believe, is where the fireworks were done. And I got watch them go off, remember one place, and that was like in Kansas City, Missouri. Being working in hospital security, and of course I was, patrolled inside, patrolled outside, and it was the 4th of July, and out in the parking lot, somebody, off a hospital property was shooting up bottle rockets or whatever, and there were several that came down, in the parking lot near me, This one here I like, this game, and it's really, if you get a chance to see it here, the King's Throne thing, I really like the way that works. You'll get these things here change, the wheel, free spins, and these things along here change. And if the king pops up underneath it, you get that. But you get a little warning ahead of time. The screen thing will pop up, and I forget what it says. And so you'll know that you're going to, but it doesn't seem like, no matter how much you do, that the king shows up as much as I would like. Let me first start out with fewer here. Well, I better do this. Let me do 10 of these. You may not even see the king pop up. It just doesn't happen enough. But it's fun when it does. Here we go. So this is going to be free spins.
Amazing. A righteous win indeed.
Okay, again.
A righteous win indeed.
I hate these other things that are going on. I don't even play them yet.
Super. What a win. Mega win.
I'm going to do 25. I may lose all my money, but here we go. Yeah, I'm losing my money fast. Okay.
Free spins.
This could make a difference.
Righteous win. Great job. Amazing.
Let's hope I can get back some of my money.
Bravo. Great job.
Well, it's only 300 million. Ooh. The wheel.
Jackpot's wheel.
Looks like it's getting ready to crash. What is going on here? Okay. Yeah, I think it crashed on me.
A righteous win indeed. Big win.
Enough of this fun here. Okay, let me close the email thing. Let's check out CNN's news. That'd probably get me talking about, which I don't want to, politics. You know, of course, people are already talking about this. You know, what in the world has happened to, you know, inspections, building inspections? You know, these buildings should have, you know, these condos and things should have been inspected like once a year, or maybe, I don't know, maybe more often. I don't know. Of course, you know, when you expect these condos, you pay, you know, 600,000 and you buy it, you know, the whatever, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, you know, whatever, you know, $1 million, 2 or 3 million, you buy a condo, and then you pay, I forget what they call it, for the associate, you know, that like a homeowners association, except it's a condo association, and you pay so much a month, I guess. I guess you could pay, but of course, I'm a poor man. Always been a poor man. Always had a job. Usually had 2 jobs, but a poor man anyway. You know, just a working class guy. But the fees for those condos are unbelievable. You know, the monthly fees that you pay. Now remember, you purchased your place, but then you're paying these condo fees. And the condo fees, of course, are for the upkeep of the, you know, the structure, the parking garage, the swimming pool, the exercise room that they have, and all these, you know, things. You're paying for those. And I can see if you have the building inspector comes and if he finds, well, wait a minute, this, you know, it's going to be, you know, has to be fixed, and it's like $15 million to fix it or something. Those people have to pay for that. When I was in Miami, I spent 5.5 years living in Miami. When I went there, I was told by the, you know, the people that had been there, lived there all their life. Some of the people never saw any snow. Uh, they said, well, the news too, like I read about it on the, you know, local news, that 20 years ago or something like that, there was major construction. Everybody wanted to live in Miami, and they built condos and all this kind of stuff in anticipation of all these people coming and buying. And what happened is that they overbuilt, way overbuilt. Then there was places, basically, maybe some of them were being, you know, rented or leased out or something at a lower price or something, but basically there was more, and so that's what the situation was when I got there. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then when I was there, all of a sudden, the boom that had happened before happened again, and they started putting up condos and all this type of stuff. And then I don't know, well, I did attend, when I got out of high school, the first school I went to was a Weaver School of Real Estate, and I completed it. So I know a little bit about real estate. But, you know, I thought, no, this is way, they're building the, you know, this stuff, and oh no, you know, and they built, and sure enough, before I left, then they had, oh crap, we've got, you know, this surplus of, you know, these places. In fact, when we went down there, I went down there with my son, because he was going to a school down there, the university, to get his be an air traffic controller. And but so I saw this construction happening, and then I saw, hey, they got too much. Anyway, what happened was they were putting up more of these fantastic condos. I mean, where you can look down and see the ocean, and some of the places you could see the ocean, the Miami River, and another, you know, it was just, I mean, I would love to live in one of those places. One of them that I would love to have lived in, Hanover Beach down there, I think it's it, is a nude beach approved by the city. And the local nudist group or whatever, sort of, there's some pictures of me someplace, and I've posted those before. I mean, you don't see anything. I'm underneath an umbrella, and you don't really see anything. You see me, I mean, I'm naked there. And at the Hollow, okay, now I've forgotten. But anyway, so it's on this beach. Now, on the other side of Hollover Beach is a you know, a non, it's not a nudist area. It's just a regular beach. Now, of course, at the nudist area that's in there, and it's a big one, and the local nudist club, their members hang out there, and if somebody is taking pictures, they'll go over and say, you know, please don't do that. Or if somebody gets, you know, rowdy or starts doing something, which doesn't really happen, you know. But, and then on the other side is, you know, another, you know, so one side, you know, in the middle, one side, regular beach, nice beach, nudist beach, you know, regular beach with, you know, everything. all the facilities, eating places, that kind of stuff, boardwalk, the whole thing. But there's also these gigantic, I don't think they were condos, I think they were all like gigantic hotels. People would fly in from, Europe and Middle East and everywhere for, Miami, Florida, and just about, I think, all of them wanted to see this nude beach. It was approved by it was, but what I thought it'd have been kind of neat to own a, now it must have been, maybe it was condo, or maybe I think that maybe that one was a condo, and I thought that'd be kind of neat to own a condo thing up there, and just, you're done eating and you go sit out on your little thing up there, the 20th floor or whatever, and just look down, and there would be, a world famous nude beach right there below you. What was interesting too is I think some people didn't know, they came to Miami Beach and they were walking along the beach, and then you come to some signs that say, nudist area or something beyond this, and so they walk next to the ocean, they walk straight, looking straight ahead, and then the same thing coming the other direction. Well, this is strange. These these people, the Massachusetts police arrested these 11 heavily armed guys who were traveling from someplace to, I forget where I read the story, to someplace else. And they're going through Massachusetts, and the police stopped them for some reason. And these people refuse to cooperate or tell the police anything. They say they don't recognize the laws of the United States. They don't recognize the United States, having any authority or anything else, and they won't cooperate. And then some of them run into the woods and all this kind of stuff, and so like for hours, they finally rounded them all up. And you can't do this, but did anybody remember it? And maybe it was a famous book, I don't know. I remembered it before and now, what was it called? Oh, wow. Anyway, it was also a movie. Not a great movie, but it was one to watch a movie, one of these movies you watch one time, And this guy, and it's back, not the revolutionary times, but back, in the olden days. And I forget what the guy, he does something, and he's not a murderer or anything like that. He does something, but he's on trial, and before the judge, he says, I forget, I'm going to make this up, to hell with the United States of America. I hate the United States of America. I wish I'd never seen it. I would love to never see it. And so the judge sentenced him to never see the United States again, and he's taken aboard a Navy ship. And the movie is he is on this, Navy. Of course, he has to be transferred. If they're going to go into port, they have to, transfer him to another ship. All that, and nobody is to, nobody's to tell him anything about the United. He's not going to be read a newspaper, all that type of stuff. And why can't I remember this? Anyway, at the end of, I don't think you're going to see the movie. I haven't seen the movie, and I don't know where it is, Maybe it was so bad but at the end of the movie, he's an old man, and he has gleaned a little bit of, he picked up a little bit of information, he overheard something, saw something, and at the end of the movie, he's made his own little flag, American flag, and he's figured out the correct number of stars, and he's sorry that he said what he said, and he loves the United States, and that's the thing. Let's see, how would I do it? Can't even do a search for it because uh, uh, oh man, that drives me crazy. My mother had Alzheimer's. My DNA, I have a DNA, the DNA, one of those DNA things, and I've got the DNA spike or whatever it is, that there's a possibility that I have Alzheimer's to look forward to. Unknown American, not the unknown. Oh, wait a minute, I think that might have been. I'm never going to, oh, hell with it. If you remember, put the link below to it or something, or at least the name of it. Where was I? Okay, I was reading the news. Anyway, when I saw these guys here, these 11 guys, you can't do it, of course. I mean, this is, but, it would be nice if, and I don't know the details, of this, but it'd be nice if, they don't recognize the United States and they're not following they don't obey the laws of the United States and all that kind of, it'd be kind of nice if you could just say, okay, and then put them someplace. And never let them, never let them on United States soil. Never let them, and when I say United States soil, I would take in, of course, Puerto Rico, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, but, all the other places, little islands, the things and all those places, hey. And then it would be like, no, you can't fly on an American, an airline that is registered in the United States or whatever. You can't fly, just, But now, of course, they would have access to wherever they were. They'd have access to the internet and Facebook. I mean, you couldn't cut off all that. Not like in the movie I was talking about. But it would be kind of nice. Okay, you don't recognize the United. Okay, But also too, I mean, we think the United States, we're number one, we're the best. Well, we're not the best in, it looks like, and maybe we might be better off seeing if the Queen would take us back, and maybe we'd be better off keeping a lot of our stuff, but having a parliamentary type of, instead of the type of Congress that we have. I don't know. And we're not number one in health care. We spend more than anybody else for health care, but so I don't know, but it would be kind of nice. Okay, you don't recognize the United States, to put them someplace, but you can't. There's things you positively can't do. If somebody tried that, I mean, it would not be, even if you didn't like the people. This collapse of this condo in Miami, that's just so horrendous that, the families are there, and, where are their loved ones? And no matter what, there's going to be family members, maybe most of them, who are going to think, okay, well, they're trapped in, in a compartment someplace, because we've seen these things on the news, like, earthquakes and in foreign countries, earthquakes and all this type of stuff, and they'll say that, well, nobody's been rescued in 2 weeks or something like that, and of course nobody the temperature has been such and such, and these people wouldn't have any water or whatever, and then a miracle will happen, and somebody will come out, a kid will come out and survive or whatever. So these people can't, I mean, pain is pain and suffering is suffering, but that's got to be, that's just got to be unbelievable. Let's see. Rideshare driver indicted on murder charge and shooting of Black Lives Matter protest in Austin. I think the Trump organization is, a criminal, organization. Apparently, it has been. It is, forever. It'll be interesting to see if Trump's chief financial officer, if he goes ahead and tells what he knows. I mean, he's an old man. I think he was actually with Trump's father, and then continued with Trump. And he's not going to look forward to going to, prison. But apparently they've done everything. It's just amazing, just amazing that Trump, with all the things that he's done, when he was, president for those 4 years, just about every day on the news, he would do something every day. He would do something that was illegal, just about every day. And he would go before the press, and he'd be asked by the press something, and he would admit to. Now, he wouldn't say, I admit to committing a crime, but he would just say what he was doing or wanted to do, and they were all criminal things. And it's just unbelievable how he didn't learn anything, and he didn't want to learn anything. I made several videos where I talked about that I didn't realize that I worked for a guy, director of security, that he was smart. The director of security I worked for, he was smart. I kind of liked him. Why, I don't know. But all the time I was working for him, I just didn't understand why he was so smart, but he did such stupid things. And I did 4 grievances at that hospital, all against him, because he was my supervisor. And he was the director of security. And I just couldn't understand why he lied about stuff that, that he would lie about. And at first you think, well, he wouldn't lie about that, but then I finally figured out. But anyway, I didn't really understand this guy that I worked for, Mr. Ross, until information came out about Donald Trump. And then I was, wow, he's got the same thing, So if I had understood, I worked for this guy 5.5 years until he fired me. I mean, I knew he was going to, in fact, I basically made him fire me. I couldn't stand him anymore. And it was all set up that and there was opening. I was to go from security officer into the biomed department. And I didn't have any training in, well, I was an amateur radio operator and stuff, and into computers, that kind of stuff. But I was to go into the biomed department, and they were paid really well. I know because I was on a committee of 5 of us who, and there was other groups with 5 set up, and we were evaluating people for future increases in pay or something like that on a scale that we had. So biomed department was one that I was on this group that we, it was okay, how important it is that, what are the working conditions? You know, are you working where it's hot? Are you working where it's cold? I mean, everything you check off these boxes. And they were already well paid, and this thing that we did indicated they should be paid more money. And anyway, I was all set to go, and it was only a matter of a week or a few days, and I was going to go over into the biomed department, but I couldn't stand this director of security because I would do these grievances and I would win, and administration would chew his ass out and warn him and everything else, but he continued to do it. And finally I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take it any longer. I knew he was going to fire me, and I could have stopped him from, well, he wasn't actually supposed to fire me. He had gone to administration, I want Jim, and administration told him, no, you can't fire him. Now he's one of your supervisors. If you want to go to him and tell him you're no longer going to be one of my supervisors, you can do that, but you cannot fire him. And I knew it, I knew on Friday that he was going to fire me on Monday. And when I went in Monday, I was ready, and just waited. Instead of going, I went to the office and got the radio and the keys or whatever. But then I went down to the parking garage and was down there, and I was in charge of 7 parking lot attendants. And they were like, Jim, what are you, not all 7 of them because they would have different posts, but like, Jim, what are you doing here? And I said, Mr. Ross is getting ready to fire me. No. I said, yep, he's getting ready to fire me. Oh, Jim, you're so funny. I waited till, and when I went up, and then I just walked in, he says, you're fired. I said, okay, and I walked out. I could have actually walked down and gone to the hospital administrator or whatever, and he would have thought, not the assistant administrator, because the assistant administrator was over and anyway, now I never checked on, and since I was told this, the person who told me it would know, but I never checked on it that, Mr. Ross fired me, but his boss, the assistant administrator of the hospital, was fired because I was fired, which would make sense if you knew what, had gone on. But anyway, so it was just when all these stories about Donald Trump and the books from the psychiatrist and his sister and that type of stuff, that, wow, okay, that's because Mr. Ross had that, he told everybody how important he was all the time. And it was just all those things together, so that's a condition. And now Mr. Ross, the director of security that I told you about, he survived. And he told me back then, one time he was saying, Jim, you know how I keep my job? And I said, jokingly, by the way, a number of the times that he went off on me, got upset, I totally was attempting to be funny. And he just didn't recognize it. And then when he exploded, then I wasn't about to say, Mr. Ross, I was just kidding. I just let him explode, and go fucking crazy. Like I said, he was a smart man. He went to Washington, D.C., and he, I don't know if that was after he testified before Congress, and they had him. There was 3 of them, I believe. I forget who the one guy was with, director of security or whatever. And then there was a guy who was director of security for nuclear power plants. And then there was Mr. Ross, director of security, hospital security. And I know Mr. Ross the way he was, he'd have been looking around, making sure if it was taking a picture that he was in the picture, all this kind of stuff. And the congressman or whatever, let's see, what's it? I think it might have been a Senate committee, because I remember Missouri Senator Stuart Symington, I believe. I think, anyway. the senator, or a senator, asked, what type of uh, training do your people have? What type of, weapons do they have? And he asked this, whoever this guy, I forget who that guy was. And then he asked the nuclear power plant person, and that guy, uh, I can't remember exactly. We're talking about the 1970s, he said, well, Senator, our security people, the nuclear power plant, of course, is located away from, cities and away, and our people have to be prepared to withstand an assault by a large, group of people, and our people have to be able to keep the place safe for X number of minutes, 30 minutes or something rather, until response people. And so our people are trained with, assault rifles and I forget what, all the, hey, and then the senator turned to Mr. Ross and said, and how are your people trained the same as, the nuclear power plant or whatever? And he said, oh yes, very same. Very same. We have all the same, And so anyway, Mr. Ross brought me, when he came back, he had the congressional record or whatever it was, or the thing of the thing. Jim, I want you to read. I said, Mr. Ross, I got stuff I need to do, please. No, Jim, look, read it. I want you to read this. I want you to read this, Because he told me before he went that he said, did you know, I'm going to testify before a congressional committee. Did you know that before you go, you have to write it up and in writing tell them what you're... I said, I didn't know that. And he said, yeah. And he said, he says, the secretary of the committee or whatever, and he says, he reads all these, blah, blah, blah. He reads all this. He's the head of the, whatever. And he says, he told me that this is the best one he's ever seen, that I did. And I said, oh, I'm sure, yeah, Mr. Ross, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, he gives me this thing, and I said, okay. And I just flipped through it, and then right away I saw, and I knew what happened, that Mr. Ross was, showing off, and it was, and I said, oh, Mr. Ross, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to, report you to Senator Stuart Symington for, not perjury, would it be perjury? I forget what it whatever. And I said, because of this statement here. And he went, we're in a hallway, he went ballistic and went storming off to Human Resources to get me fired, whatever. And he just did that kind of, but that was my sense of humor. I've mentioned this before, I'm not good at telling jokes or even telling stories. But what I'm good at is coming up with things like that. But when somebody goes ballistic, when somebody can't understand, and he couldn't, and I think most people would have said, oh, okay, Jim, oh, you're so funny. Or people would say, even if they believed it or something, they'd say, oh, who's going to listen to you? But he, and I did that, set him off numerous times like that, and he just went ballistic. And I would never, not just him, but anybody, when I did something like that, if somebody went ballistic, then I would, sometimes I'd double down on it, which was not smart on my part. And I guess maybe if I'd have known, what condition he had, I would have just went ahead and quit. In fact, I was offered a job, and I wish I had taken it. When I was working there, and when I was so upset with him, I went over to Johnson County Community College. They had an opening for a security officer. I interviewed, and the guy said, Jim, your background and everything, he says, I want you working here, and you got the job. But he says, I want to tell you something though first. He says, the way this college situation, he says, I don't know about how hospitals are set up, but the way this college is set up, there's the dean of such and such, there's the dean of faculty, the dean of students, the dean of whatever. And he says, he says, they're all think they run the place. Like, he says, like, I don't know, again, I can't remember exactly, what he said, but it was like, they all think they run the place. And he says, it's kind of aggravating. He says, like, for the ball field, different kind of ball field, we have tennis and baseball and basketball and all this kind of stuff. And all the students, they can use it. They just need to, you know, notify whoever they notified and have it entered that they have a permission to be there for whatever it is, he says. And then our security will go over and say, you guys don't have permission to, use this ball field. And you need here's what you need to do to get it in the future. And somebody will go, and I think that might have been before cell phones. Yeah, it was. Then somebody will go to the payphone, call the dean of students or the dean of faculty or the dean of anybody, and then that dean will tell security, no, let them use it. And then he gave me another, I think, example or two or something. And I said, well, wow. I said, I appreciate you being honest with me and telling me, and I really, I appreciate the offer of the job, but I'm not going to take it. And that would just be so aggravating. It would drive me so crazy. I said, I'm just, thank you very much for the job offer. And so I didn't, and I wish that I had taken it, and I would have got away from Mr. Ross. And if I had known about the condition, I would have just bailed, because I would have known, I thought sort of that he was going to learn, that he lost, I did 4 grievances and he lost 4 grievances. They chewed his ass out big time for stuff that he did. He told me that he did not get a pay raise that he was supposed to get. And he told me that on another, he says, Jim, remember such and such? I said, yeah. And he says, the hospital, the assistant administrator in charge of this, he said, he told me, he says, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore, and you just can't do this. And, and then Mr. Ross says, my blood pressure was high. I was having all kinds of problems, and he says, they told me that if I yelled at an employee, he didn't yell at me, well, he yelled at me when he said, if you don't like it, get out of my department, this kind of stuff. Really, he wasn't yelling at me. What got him, he was yelling at one of my parking lot attendants. And the downfall for him, although they would have believed me in my merit review my thing, but right down the hall from where the director of security's office was, a few doors down, was the employee health nurse. And she had a secretary or whatever, and that secretary was the daughter of the hospital assistant, hospital administrator, assistant hospital administrator. There were 2 of them at that time. And that was his daughter, the guy who was the director, the guy who was over Mr. Ross. And she lived at home at that point. And she had gone home and told her dad, I guess they're having dinner, and she's saying, I don't know exactly, that Mr. Ross, he's a really bad man, or, and she wasn't a 15-year-old girl, she was but that Mr. Ross is must have said, Mr. Ross is a bad guy. He was hollering at this parking lot attendant, and all the way down, I could hear him yelling and screaming at her, blah, 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 blah. And because that hospital system administrator, when I did the grievance, and he says, okay, Jim, I'm going to take care of this, and he's never going to be allowed to do such and blah, 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 and don't you worry, and if you have a problem, come back to me, and whatever. And then he says, by the way, my daughter, I didn't know that, He said, my daughter works as, and when she came home from, she told me, so, did you hear that? A boom. It's not the 4th of July yet, but it's going to be 9 p.m. here in a few minutes. I worry about, we have a cat that never goes outside, Dee Dee. She runs the place. She runs us. She tells me when she wants me to pet her. She tells me when she wants me to use my stick on her, my walking cane, which I pick up. I don't really need it. I have it, She wants me to do that to her, and when she wants to be fed and all this kind of stuff. And from time to time, there'll be another cat outside. Right now, there's an orange cat that is just so lovable and wants to be in here so bad. It just cries to come in here. We feed it. It's got 2 cat houses out there. It uses either one, but I worry about it with the 4th of July and other animals, with people shooting off these, but anyway, I can't believe, did I mention that I think I did, that the Fort Worth police put extra patrol, it was reported, I guess, that the Fort Worth Police Department had extra patrols out because of people shooting fireworks illegally, and they were cracking down. And I said, not going to work because of my experience. And I think it must be working or something. Although one thing is, I forget what the fines are. They are bad for, doing it. That might be enough to stop a few people. And I don't remember when I was, patrolling, oh man, long time ago in that small town. I don't know what the fines were, but I'm sure that, and I bet you anything that probably the local magistrate at the court, if I'd have written a ticket for somebody, probably would have said, okay. I guess he might have given them which wasn't probably very much. He would have been, maybe he would have said, okay, I know you got kids and don't do that anymore or something, Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I don't think I have to worry about putting too much in the description because what is there, huh? Anyway, thank you very much for watching.